Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Lepakshi Khurana. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Tuesday, the 14th of February. India's PM Modi, French President Macron launched new Air India-Airbus partnership. Coffee trumps economic crisis as Tim Hortons opens in Pakistan. And differences emerge in Taliban leadership as interior minister makes public criticism. And now for all the details, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday in a virtual ceremony jointly launched the new partnership of Air India and aircraft manufacturer Airbus. The partnership between the two companies will cater to expansion and revival of the Air India fleet under the Tata Group, the airline's new owner.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday interacted and oversaw the launch of a new partnership between Indian airline giant Air India and aircraft manufacturers Airbus in a virtual ceremony. In his remarks, PM Modi said the partnership shows the strength of relationship between India and France, as well as the success and aspirations of India's civil aviation sector. Terming the deal historic, Modi said India is emerging as a major market of aviation sector and this deal will help in the increasing demand of the market. Macron said India can be the one that can mobilize the world. He added that France was committed to providing state-of-the-art, most efficient technology to India and that the end of the pandemic should lead to more exchanges between the two nations.
निकट भविष्य में भारत एविएशन सेक्टर में विश्व का तीसरा सबसे बड़ा मार्केट बनने जा रहा है। कई आकलनों के अनुसार भारत को अगले 15 वर्षों में 2000 से अधिक विमानों की आवश्यकता होगी। आज की ऐतिहासिक घोषणा इस बढ़ती मांग को पूरा करने में सहायक होगी।
The Indian aviation giant Air India, which came under the control of the Tata Group last year, has in the latest deal with Airbus agreed to buy 250 aircraft, which include 210 narrow-body planes and 40 wide-body aircraft. The Air India is also expected to sign a deal with American aircraft manufacturer Boeing for 220 planes as a part of the mega order of 470 planes, making it the single largest deal by an airline. Air India, which went back to its founder Tata Group in January 2022, is looking at revival of its reputation and expansion of its fleet as it struggles with its image for poor service and aging fleet.
And India on Tuesday remembered the 40 paramilitary CRPF personnel who lost their lives in the Pulwama terror attack on February 14, 2019. The attack was claimed by Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed terror group.
Family members of the Indian Paramilitary Centre Reserve Police Force CRPF personnel who lost their lives in the 2019 terrorist attack in Pulwama in India's Jammu and Kashmir remembered the fallen soldiers on the 4th anniversary of the attack. I had lost my son in the attack but have vowed to send his older son to the armed forces. Father of CRPF Constable Ratan Thakur said, who lost his life in the attack. Tributes and wreaths were also laid by the CRPF and senior security officials at the memorial in Pulwama. Talking to reporters, CRPF's Kashmir Zone IG MS Bhatia said the situation has improved drastically in the region. Synergy has improved among the forces and they are determined to wipe out terrorism from the valley, he added. A top official of Jammu and Kashmir Police also reiterated and said they will not let terrorism flourish in the region bordering Pakistan.
जिसमें 19 में से 8 टेररिस्ट मारा गया है और 7 जेल में बंद है। बाकी 4 जो है 4 में 3 पाकिस्तानी अजहर मसूद, रौफ मसूद और जो अलवी है पाकिस्तानी, तीनों पाकिस्तान में, एक कश्मीर का जो पुलवामा काशी नगर में भी वो जिंदा है पाकिस्तान में। तो उसके बाद जो ऑपरेशन चल रहा है पिछले 3 साल में खास करके जैश का कमर टूट गया। आज डेट में जैश मोहम्मद का कोई भी पुराना टेररिस्ट नहीं बचा है।
At least 40 security personnel were killed when a suicide bomber of Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed terror group rammed a vehicle carrying explosive into a CRPF convoy in Pulwama on February 14, 2019. Days after the attack, the Indian Air Force on February 26 carried out multiple aerial strikes at Jaish-e-Mohammed terror camps in Pakistan's Balakot, killing a large number of terrorists and destroying their infrastructure.
Moving on, India's Interior Minister Amit Shah on Tuesday said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's party has nothing to hide or be afraid of on the controversy over the Adani Group. Shah said that the Supreme Court has taken cognizance of the matter and it is not right for him to make further comments.
India's Interior Minister Amit Shah, in an exclusive interview with news agency ANI on Tuesday, said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's party has nothing to hide or be afraid of on the controversy over the Adani Group, responding to opposition allegations of favouring the conglomerate amid charges of stock manipulation by a US short seller. Led by billionaire Gautam Adani, the business house's 7 listed companies bearing his name have together lost about $120 billion in market value since the January 24 report by Hindenburg Research alleged improper use of offshore tax havens. Shah also said that the Supreme Court has taken cognizance of the matter and as a minister it is not right for him to comment as the apex court is hearing it.
कैबिनेट के सदस्य नाते जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने किसी मैटर को सीज किया हो उस वक्त मेरे लिए बोलना ठीक नहीं होगा, परंतु इसमें बीजेपी के लिए कुछ छुपाने को नहीं है और ना किसी बात से डरने की जरूरत है.
The Adani row stalled the parliament during the budget session and ignited street protests by the opposition in recent days. Rivals including the main opposition Congress party have accused PM Modi and the ruling BJP of long-standing ties to the Adani Group, going back nearly 2 decades from when Modi was Chief Minister of the western state of Gujarat. Gautam Adani and Shah also come from the same state.
In news from Pakistan, the Economic Coordination Committee of Cabinet on Monday approved up to 124% hike in gas tariff across Pakistan for 6 months to implement a major prior condition set by the IMF for resumption of a bailout program. The IMF funding is crucial as Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves have fallen to nearly $2.9 billion, barely enough to cover 3 weeks of imports.
The Economic Coordination Committee of Cabinet, chaired by Pakistan's Finance Minister Ishaq Dar, on Monday approved up to 124% hike on gas tariff with retrospective effect from January 1 for 6 months in a bid to secure early disbursement of $1.1 billion IMF bailout. For households consuming up to 100 cubic meters of gas, the rate has been hiked by 16.6% to Rs 350 per MMBTU metric million British thermal unit. For domestic consumers who utilize 200 cubic meters, the rate has been increased by 32% to Rs 730 per MMBTU. The South Asian nation, which is battling a wrenching economic crisis and is in dire need of funds, is seeking to reduce the value of its fuel imports and protect itself from geopolitical shocks. A shortage of natural gas, which accounts for over a third of the country's power output, plunged large areas into hours of darkness last year. Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves held by the central bank have fallen to $2.9 billion, barely enough to cover 3 weeks of imports. A resumption of the IMF program would also unlock other avenues of funding for Pakistan.
And meanwhile, just as Pakistan's economic crisis has taken a turn for the worse, Pakistanis are queuing for hours to grab coffee and pastries from Canadian chain Tim Hortons, which has opened its first outlet in Lahore city. Take a look.
Pakistanis are queuing for hours to grab coffee and pastries from Canadian chain Tim Hortons, which opened its first outlet in the South Asian country this week, just as its economic crisis took a turn for the worse. In less than a month, Pakistan's currency has lost more than a quarter of its value against the US dollar, And fuel prices have risen by almost a fifth as the government implements fiscal measures to unlock IMF funding. Inflation in January spiked to 27% year-on-year, the highest in more than a decade. But all this has not stopped scores of Pakistanis from thronging to the cafe since it opened on Saturday at an upmarket Lahore shopping mall.
पाकिस्तान में लिमिटेड ब्रांड्स ही हैं कॉफ़ी के और एक नई चीज़ आई है और वैसे भी मैं लाहौर से हूँ तो लाहौरियों के बारे में मशहूर है कि कोई भी चीज़ लाहौर में जब नहीं खुलेगी ना तो रश तो लगेगा और लोगों ने एक दफ़ा ज़रूर ट्राई करना है।
लोगों ने कहा चलो हम इंट्रोड्यूस करें, वो भी आपके पास बिल्कुल ठीक है कि जिस तरह जो गरीब बंदा है, जो दिहाड़ीदार बंदा, जितने की ये कॉफ़ी है उसकी तो दिहाड़ी भी नहीं है, समझ रहे हैं आप बात। तो यही है कि हमें करना चाहिए, दूसरों का भी ख्याल करना चाहिए। जिस तरह वो ऑटो की लाइनों में लगे जलील हो रहे हैं और जो एलीट क्लास है वो इधर आराम से क्या कहते हैं इधर लाइन में लगी है।
According to Tim Hortons online menu, a small brewed coffee costs 350 Pakistani rupees, that is $1.30, while a large flavored coffee is twice as much. By comparison, the average government mandated minimum wage is 25,000 rupees, that is $94 a month.
In news from Afghanistan, major differences have emerged within the Taliban leadership in Afghanistan after the Taliban's interior minister Sirajuddin Haqqani described the country's situation as intolerable, reports have suggested. Haqqani recently said that the Taliban administration should desist from adopting policies that would derive a wedge between the ruling system and the people.
Taliban's Interior Minister Sirajuddin Haqqani lambasted for the first time his leadership for monopolizing power during an event in Khost province, reports have suggested, reigniting internal rift speculations. The statement came as Afghanistan plunges deeper into a humanitarian and economic crisis following the Taliban takeover in 2021. It also follows increasingly restrictive edicts targeting women that are seen as further isolating the country from the international community. Haqqani said that the Taliban administration should desist from adopting policies that would drive a wedge between the ruling system and the people, allowing others to exploit it to defame Islam. The minister's remarks prompted a response from Taliban spokesman Zabiullah Mujahid, who said that criticism of any leader or official should be said in private. Mujahid also said that their Islamic ethics bind them to not publicly criticize or vilify the emir. Interior Minister Haqqani is on the US list of most wanted men for plotting terrorism against American nationals. His Haqqani network of militants staged high-profile deadly attacks in support of the Taliban insurgents against the United States and the NATO troops in Afghanistan for almost 20 years, until the Taliban retook control of the country 18 months ago.
In news from Nepal, agitating transport workers in Nepal clashed with police and set fire to 2 police vehicles and vandalized public and private properties as they hit the streets against the traffic police on Monday. Police fired multiple rounds of tear gas to disperse the agitators but was not able to bring the situation under control. The agitators also burnt down a temporary police shelter in the area as they intensified their protest. The protesters have argued that the new traffic rules are not in the interest of public transportation, complaining that the traffic police has been charging fines even for parking their vehicles on the roadside. They announced plans to suspend public transport within the Kathmandu Valley from Tuesday. However, the strike was called off, keeping public interest in mind, local media reported. Modern news from Nepal. India's Foreign Secretary Vinayak Mohan Quatra on Monday called on the top leadership of Nepal, including President Bidya Devi Bhandari, Prime Minister Pushp Kamal Dahal and Foreign Minister Dr. Bimla Rai Podyal in Kathmandu. During these meetings, the two sides discussed ways to boost bilateral ties between the two countries. In secretary-level talks with his counterpart Bharat Raj Podyal, both sides agreed to further strengthen their economic and development cooperation. They reviewed partnership in areas of cross-border connectivity, hydropower cooperation, culture, trade and commerce. India and Nepal share a close partnership rooted in age-old civilizational and cultural linkages. The two-day visit was in keeping with the tradition of high-level exchanges between the two countries. Well, that's all we have for you from South Asia this evening. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.